Welcome to Sinful Horror Stories. Sit back, relax, and stay sinful. Hi, my name is Carly, and I've been listening to your stories for a while now, and I remembered this creepy, true, and unexplained story that I have and I want to share. It may be a short story, but it still freaks me out to this day. I can't remember exactly what day this event occurred, but I remember it was during May of 2018. I was a junior in high school and I had just gotten home from school. I threw my backpack down per usual and laid stomach down on my bed with my legs hanging off of it, balancing myself with feet touching the floor. Mind you, I didn't close my door behind me. The way my room was set up at the time was that the foot of the bed faced towards my bedroom door, so this means my face was turned away from the door in the position I landed in. I was scrolling through my Instagram watching God knows what, when I have a sickening feeling that someone was right behind me, but I soon shrugged it off and went back to scrolling. About 5 minutes later, I felt an apparent finger glide across the lower portion of my back that was exposed because of my laying position. I thought it could have been my older brother or father, as they loved to mess with me and scare the living shit out of me. I slowly turned my head to see who it was, and found no one there. I thought maybe they had just ran out, so I went to investigate. I called out to my dad, and when I finally found him, he was in the restroom, taking a shower, and he said he had been in for about 20 minutes. So I went to look for my brother. Turns out he wasn't even home, and that he had went into work early. I'm still baffled at that incident, and have no clue what to think. It wasn't a breeze or anything that could have been explained. It was no doubt a finger with a long enough nail that I could feel it. It's not much of a scary story, but it still makes me shudder whenever I think about it. This happened about 2 years ago. It was around Halloween time, and everyone in the city is just setting into that mood. I remember I was out with friends and we were just walking around at night, as it was fun for us and we did it a lot. We always liked to prank people, whether it was ding-dong ditching or tossing a snowball at people walking by. Punky kid stuff. I was the one who always said, "Oh, we shouldn't do that," because I always hated the thought of getting caught. Anyways, back to the story. We rang someone's doorbell on a main road and we split up. I remember the story like it was yesterday. I started running before the doorbell was hit, as I always do. 4 of us went down the street. Me and my other friend, who I'll call Jay, ran up through a small path leading into some small woods. Jay and I turned on our flashlights and started walking up the hill. As we walked up the hill, we started to become very, very nervous for some reason. I mean, other than the fact it was nighttime and we just rang a doorbell. As we walked up the hill, I heard some rustling in the leaves. We turned off our flashlights and started up the hill. I looked around a small clearing, which most people use for sledding in the winter. I saw a woman dressed in all white, long black hair. If you're familiar with the girl from the movie The Ring, that's what she looked like. She just sat there crossed legs, looking out onto the football field at the bottom of the hill. We dashed out of there and I hadn't heard anything since. The scariest part about all of this, though, 1 year later on Halloween night, my brother and his friends were out late, and he described the same exact figure I had seen just a year before, except this time the person was standing in the middle of the woods humming. I had never told him this story, nor had Jay. To this day, I do not know what to think, and will be sure to let you guys know if I see them again. Maybe I'll snag a picture. My name is Andrew and I'm 25 years old. Halloween is my favorite holiday of the year, and for as long as I could remember I went trick-or-treating, till I was too old. Most times I used to go with my best friend Owen. I think we were about 10 years old. As usual, Owen and I would trick-or-treat as many houses as we could. There was always one house we didn't knock on. It was an old man named Bernard. He wasn't very friendly to children and basically everyone. hence why we never knocked on his door. For some reason this time, however, me and Owen were feeling extra greedy and wanted more candy, so Owen suggested we knock on Bernard's door. I told him it was a bad idea, but he insisted. His house had no lit-up pumpkin or Halloween decorations, so it was obvious he didn't want to be bothered. We knocked on his door and anxiously waited for him to answer. When he finally answered, he gave us this look of disgust. We both muttered, "Trick or treat." He carried on looking at us like dirt. Surprisingly, however, he said, "Wait one moment." He took 2 or 3 minutes to come back. I think he wasn't expecting people asking for candy, so he had to see what he had in his house. When he came back, he brought with him 2 muffins. He told us to eat them right away as they tasted better. We said thank you and walked away. We got to the end of his yard when Owen took a huge bite of his muffin, basically just scarfed it all down. I also noticed that Bernard was still standing on his door watching us. I dropped my muffin on the floor accidentally and picked it up. I was about to eat it, but Owen said, "Don't eat it, it's gross." I told him it was fine, but he insisted I don't. I just put it in my candy bag and thought I would eat it later. We took 5 paces down the street when Owen said he wasn't feeling well. I asked him what was wrong, but before he could respond, he fell on the floor unconscious. The next thing I saw was the most frightening thing in my life. I turned around and saw Bernard fast walking up to me with a crazed, angered look on his face. He grabbed my face and scratched me with his long nails as he pushed me back onto the ground. He then grabbed Owen's leg and started to drag him along the floor back towards his house. I got up and screamed, trying to stop him, pulling Bernard's arm, hoping he would let go of Owen. He then let go of Owen and grabbed me by the back of my neck, once again digging his disgusting long nails in the back of my neck, now trying to pull me into the house. At this point, some other trick-or-treaters saw what was happening and came over. Bernard then let me go and went back in his house. One of the parents called the police and stayed with me as I tried to wake Owen up. The police arrived and questioned Bernard. He tried to spin the story and say that we were causing trouble, but his story didn't hold up. I showed them the scratch marks on my face and neck, and I also gave the police the muffin I was given. They looked inside the muffin, and they saw that there were 2 very strong sleeping tablets that knock you out almost instantly. Bernard was arrested and charged. I'm not sure what happened to him after that. He either moved away or went in jail, because we never saw him again. So glad I dropped my muffin, and no one told me not to eat it. I think Bernard was anticipating me to be knocked out as well. It scares me to imagine what he had planned for us if we both felt sick and trapped. My name is Avery and I'm 22 years old. This story happened to me when I was 13. For one Halloween year, I had a sleepover at my friend Kathy's house. We went trick-or-treating, came home, ate the candy we had gotten, and watched a horror movie from Chucky and Friday the 13th. One thing about my friend Kathy is that she has an older brother who's named Travis. Whenever I would go to Kathy's house, I would always get these weird vibes from Travis. He would always stare at me and was really weird and socially awkward. Anyway, that Halloween night was going great. We were eating lots of candy and watching horror movies with my best friend. During the night, I woke up needing to use the bathroom. As you walk to the bathroom, you can look over the banister into the living room. I took a quick glance and actually had to do a double take because I saw Travis sat in the dark watching me. I didn't say anything and quickly went into the bathroom. I was so freaked out. What was he doing there and why was he there in the dark watching me? I was anxious to leave and go back to bed. I didn't want to, but I had to look to see if Travis was still there in the dark. He was gone. I thought thankfully he went to bed or something. After returning back to bed, I struggled getting to sleep. I don't know what it was, but I was getting this odd feeling that something wasn't right. After tossing and turning for a while, I started to hear a creaking of some kind. I opened one of my eyes and what I could see frightened me, right to the core of my soul. Travis was hiding in the closet, watching me sleep. Not only that, he was wearing a creepy mask. It was a bloody pigged mask. I immediately closed my eyes and tried to be as still as I could. I prayed to God he didn't see me. I couldn't sleep and I couldn't move. He never left the bedroom though. That whole night, I laid there as still as I could while he watched me in that creepy mask. I think it was around 6 in the morning when I finally heard him leave the bedroom. That morning I got up exhausted and scared. I tried my best to act like everything was normal. I don't know why, but at the time I was too afraid to tell anyone what happened. Kathy remained my best friend for years, but I never slept at her house again. Whenever I hear a noise whilst trying to sleep, I always think it's Travis watching me from the dark. My name is Courtney. I'm 24 years old, and this story happened to me 2 years ago on Halloween. There was a Halloween party in an attic bar in town where I live. I dressed up as a girl from The Ring. My 2 friends dressed up as Pamela Voorhees and the nun from the Conjuring films. The party was going great. Lots of people were there. Cool music and a buffet of Halloween-themed snacks and drinks. I went over to get myself some non-alcoholic punch they had, as I was driving and not much of a drinker anyway. As I was grabbing myself a drink, a man appeared next to me. He started off by saying, "Having a good time?" while standing a little too close to me than I would have preferred. He was dressed as a zombie, but he himself reeked of alcohol and body odor. By the way, the look on his face, he was already very intoxicated. I tried to be polite and say, "Yeah, the party's going great." He didn't say anything, which made this more awkward than it already was. He just looked at me smiling. I said to him, "Enjoy the party," and walked off to find the rest of my friends. As the night went on, that guy from earlier kept popping up around me. It was a party and the attic bar wasn't a huge place, but still, it was like he was always in my presence. What made it even weirder was that he didn't seem to have anyone with him. Whenever I looked over at him, he would give me that uncomfortable stare with a smile like before. I would awkwardly smile and then look away. I think it was pretty obvious he was making me uncomfortable, but he didn't seem to get the message that I didn't want to interact with him. At one point during the night, I needed to use the bathroom. My friend came with me and she told me to hold her drink as she went in first. There was a rule, no drinks allowed in the bathrooms. As I was waiting for my friend, I was scrolling through my phone. Someone bumped into me and drinks spilled all over me. At that point, I had no more patience and lost my temper. I said, "Oh my God, just leave me alone. Stay the hell away from me." That creepy smile he had went from a creepy smile to a very upset and angered, disturbing frown. He walked away. I assumed to leave the party. I did feel kind of bad, but at the same time he was being very inappropriate. I didn't see this stranger at the party for the rest of the night, and actually enjoyed myself from then on. It must have been around 2 a.m. when my friends and I decided to call it a night. As I finished getting my 2 drunk friends in the back of my car, I suddenly felt someone grabbing my hair and pulling me to the ground. I started screaming and trying to fight off whoever was attacking me. He didn't grab me for long though, as my friends got out of the car and he ran off. My friends said to call the police. I said no, I just want to go home, as I couldn't be bothered to deal with all of that. I know what you're thinking, the guy who attacked me was the same guy who had been badgering me, but it wasn't. It was some creepy skinny guy. But I did, however, see the guy who had been following me on the other side of the street once again, giving me that creepy, awful smile. I dropped my friends off and went home. I honestly think that weird guy at the party had much bigger plans for me. He wasn't just some socially awkward guy being inappropriate. I think he knew the guy who attacked me, and that was just a tiny part of what he truly had in store for me. My name is Fred. This story happened in the year 2000 on Halloween night. I was 22 at the time and had recently bought an apartment in a bad neighborhood, as it was the only thing I could afford. I don't mind Halloween at all. I'd just rather not answer the door to trick-or-treaters, and that year was no different. I spent the evening getting some work done on my PC and watched a few movies that were on TV. As expected that evening, the door knocked plenty of times, till they finally figured out no one was home and moved along. It was around 8:40 p.m., I think, when I got a knock at the door. Nothing odd at first, then a second knock. Again, not unusual, as people usually knock twice. However, the third knock was more of a bang. No, I had to see what was going on. I took a quick look through the peephole. To my surprise, it wasn't a child standing there. It was a fully grown man. He had a weird mask on. It looked homemade. It was like a mask of a human giving off a fake smile. I honestly didn't know what to think of this. Maybe it was just some guy who was too old to be trick-or-treating. Or perhaps it was someone's Halloween prank. Either way, I felt uneasy at that point. I sort of stood next to the door to see if he would go away. After about 2 minutes of waiting, I took another look through the peephole, and he was still standing there. I didn't want to say anything because I wanted him to think no one was home, and I certainly didn't want to open the door. So I quietly went and sat down and read a magazine for a little while. I think around 25 minutes had passed when I thought to take another look to see if the man was still there. When I checked, my heart fell into my stomach. There were 2 more men stood next to him with similar masks. I took my eye away from the peephole for a second, and then the men started banging on the door. I backed away and then went to call the police. As I was dialing, the power to the building cut out, and the apartment went pitch black. And of course, the phone went dead. I started to hear the doorknob being turned and pulled, and then from what I could make out, the sounds of tools of some kind were being used. The men were in the middle of breaking into my home. I started to panic, thinking I was going to be killed. I opened the window and thought about jumping out, or trying to dangle down or something. I was on the 4th floor, so it was quite high up. I decided against it and then ran into one of the closets in the bedroom. I could hear the men walking around my apartment. Didn't seem they had a flashlight because I couldn't see any from the gaps of the closet. There was only a little bit of light shining through the apartment from moonlight. For some reason, the men quickly rushed out of the apartment as the power came back on. I don't know if they saw the window open and assumed I escaped, or the power coming back on was what spooked them. I called the police immediately and reported what had just happened. They got back to me the next day that there had actually been a few reports of men in strange masks harassing and breaking into people's homes. And in one case, a man and his older brother were left with severe physical injuries when the men had broken in and assaulted them. I was one of the lucky ones. I hate to imagine what these men would have done to me if they had found me. I had to stay in that apartment for another 1.5 years, unfortunately. I will say I was paranoid and frightened in my own home for the rest of the time I lived there, and never felt safe. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Please be sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe for future videos. I hope everyone's having a great October Halloween month. Be sure to email your true scary stories to thesinfulsavant@gmail.com. I will have the link to my email in the description box below as well. Until we meet again, stay sinful.